Everything changes the moment you decide not to ignore this feeling. You almost kept scrolling. You almost convinced yourself this was just another ordinary message, another passing moment that would disappear like so many others. But something inside you refused to let go. It wasn't fear. It wasn't curiosity alone. It was something much deeper, something ancient, as if your soul had recognized a signal before your mind could understand it. Somewhere, beyond everything you can see, a heart connected to yours is overwhelmed with emotion at this very moment, and the reason has everything to do with a choice you finally made without even realizing how powerful it truly was, for so long. You believed nothing was happening. Days came and went without the answers you wanted. You questioned your path. You questioned your timing. You even questioned whether the connection you felt was real or simply a dream your heart refused to release. Yet while you were searching for visible signs, invisible changes were unfolding with perfect precision. Every disappointment was quietly moving pieces into place. Every delay was preparing something that could never have happened any sooner. And now, someone you cannot stop thinking about is experiencing a wave of emotion they never expected to feel. The strange part is that they aren't crying because everything suddenly became easy. They're crying because something inside them finally broke free. The walls they spent months, maybe even years, building around their heart have started collapsing. Every excuse they once believed has begun losing its power. Every fear that convinced them to stay silent is becoming impossible to defend. They tried to convince themselves they had moved on. They repeated those words until they almost believed them. But truth has a quiet way of surviving every lie we tell ourselves, and one unforgettable memory refused to disappear. It happened during an ordinary moment. Nothing dramatic announced its arrival. No thunder filled the sky. No miracle unfolded in front of their eyes. Instead, life whispered. A familiar melody drifted through the air. A place you once shared crossed their path. A stranger smiled with the same kindness you always carried. Those tiny moments began connecting like stars forming a hidden constellation. Suddenly, everything they had buried returned with incredible clarity. They realized they hadn't escaped their feelings at all. They had simply delayed facing them, until destiny gently removed every place left to hide. Meanwhile, your own journey has been changing in ways you barely noticed. You spent so much time healing wounds nobody else could see. You learned how to survive lonely nights without waiting for someone to rescue you. You began rebuilding your confidence one quiet day at a time. The person you were becoming looked very different from the one who once searched desperately for validation. You stopped chasing people who couldn't recognize your value. You started choosing peace over chaos. And that silent transformation reached farther than you ever imagined, because somehow, they felt it too. Souls have a language that words cannot explain. Sometimes they recognize growth before conversations ever happen. Sometimes they sense healing before two people stand face to face again. While you believed your progress belonged only to you, your energy began shifting everything around you. The invisible thread connecting your lives grew stronger instead of weaker. The distance between your hearts no longer felt permanent. It felt temporary, as though every passing day was pulling you closer to an answer that had already begun writing itself. But another truth remained hidden beneath the surface. You may have noticed unusual signs recently. Certain numbers appearing repeatedly. Dreams that felt more real than waking life. Sudden memories arriving without warning. Moments when time seemed to pause for no reason at all. Maybe you dismissed them as coincidence. Maybe you smiled and continued with your day. Yet your spirit often recognizes movement before your eyes can see it. The universe has countless ways of preparing someone for change without revealing exactly what is coming. Every small sign has been leading toward one extraordinary moment, though its meaning is still only beginning to unfold. The person connected to your destiny has spent countless nights replaying every conversation they shared with you. They remember words you probably forgot saying. They remember your laughter echoing through ordinary moments that suddenly became priceless. They remember opportunities they allowed fear to steal away. Every memory became heavier than the silence they chose. Every regret became louder than the excuses they once believed. Eventually, they reached a point where pretending no longer protected them. It only imprisoned them. That realization changed everything. But it also forced them to confront one painful question they had avoided for far too long. What if you had already moved on? That single thought shook them more deeply than they ever expected. It wasn't jealousy that overwhelmed them. It was regret. They realized they had spent so much time protecting themselves that they risked losing the one connection that never truly left their heart. Suddenly every day apart felt precious instead of convenient. Every missed opportunity became impossible to ignore. Every silent moment carried the weight of words left unspoken. And in the middle of that emotional storm, tears finally came, not from sadness alone, but from awakening, at almost the exact same time. Something remarkable was happening inside you. Without announcing it to anyone, you began releasing old pain. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But enough to make room for something new. You forgave parts of your story that once filled you with anger. You accepted lessons that once felt unfair. You stopped measuring your worth by someone else's ability to recognize it. That decision changed your entire energy, even if nobody told you so. Sometimes the greatest miracles begin the moment your heart chooses peace instead of control, and that choice echoed farther than you could ever imagine. Love has never been about perfect timing alone. It has always been about becoming the people capable of protecting what destiny offers. If your paths had crossed again too soon, old fears might have destroyed what hope was trying to build. If your hearts had reunited before healing, yesterday's wounds would have written tomorrow's story. But something sacred has shifted. Both journeys have been quietly shaping the same destination. The delays were never punishment. They were preparation. And now the distance that once seemed endless has started shrinking with breathtaking speed. Still, not everything is simple. They continue wrestling with doubts. They wonder whether forgiveness is possible. They question whether they deserve another chance. Every hopeful thought is challenged by an old fear. Every dream of reaching out is interrupted by memories of past mistakes. Yet each attempt to walk away only brings them back to the same undeniable truth. Their heart has already chosen. The only thing left is finding the courage to let their actions finally match what their soul has known for so long, and that moment is closer than anyone realizes. You might believe your greatest breakthrough is still somewhere ahead of you, but what if it has already begun? What if the peace you've recently started feeling isn't the ending of one chapter, but the opening of another? Sometimes transformation is so quiet that you mistake it for ordinary life. You don't notice the miracle while it's happening because it doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with calm. It arrives with clarity. It arrives with the strange feeling that you no longer need to force what belongs to you, and that realization changes everything. The tears your soulmate is shedding right now are unlike any they have cried before. These are not tears of hopelessness. They are not tears of defeat. They are tears that come when someone finally understands what they almost lost. Tears that appear when denial gives way to truth. Tears that carry relief because the connection they feared was gone forever suddenly feels alive again. Somewhere deep inside, they know your story isn't over. They know another chapter is waiting. They can feel it with every heartbeat, even though one final obstacle still stands between you. Destiny always asks one last question before revealing its greatest gifts. It asks whether you are willing to trust what you cannot yet see. It asks whether hope can survive one more moment of uncertainty. It asks whether love is strong enough to outgrow fear. Those questions have been shaping both of your journeys from the very beginning. Every delay, every silence, every unanswered prayer has been leading toward this exact crossroads, where one unexpected decision will determine everything that happens next. And just when it seems the universe is finally ready to bring your paths together, something completely unforeseen begins unfolding. A message is about to be written. A name is about to appear. A door you believed was permanently closed is about to move for the first time in what feels like forever. But neither of you knows that another hidden truth has been waiting behind that door all along, and when it finally steps into the light, you will realize this was never only about finding your soulmate, it was about discovering the version of yourself they had been waiting for, just seconds before everything changes forever. Stop for just one moment. Before you dismiss this as another passing message, listen to the feeling that brought you here. There is something different in the air around you today. You may not have noticed. You once shared. Even strangers carried tiny pieces of your energy. The universe kept placing reminders in front of them until pretending became impossible, but one unexpected sign changed everything. It happened during an ordinary moment, the kind most people would overlook. They paused for just a second. Maybe they looked out a window. Maybe they closed their eyes after another exhausting day. And in that quiet space, they felt something they hadn't allowed themselves to feel in a very long time. Hope. Not loud hope. Not dramatic hope. Just a gentle certainty that whispered your name into the deepest part of their heart. That whisper became impossible to silence, and suddenly the walls they spent months building began cracking from the inside. Meanwhile, you were fighting battles they knew nothing about. You carried burdens without asking anyone to rescue you. You learned how to smile even when your heart felt heavy. You discovered that healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about refusing to let the past decide your future. Every lonely night shaped your spirit. Every unanswered prayer strengthened your faith. The version of you that exists today is not the same person who once waited desperately for someone else's approval. That change became the miracle neither of you expected. There is something extraordinary about a soul that chooses growth over bitterness. Most people allow heartbreak to harden them. You allowed it to deepen you. Instead of closing your heart forever, you quietly rebuilt it with stronger foundations. Instead of losing hope, you learned to place hope somewhere greater than fear. That quiet decision echoed across a connection that words cannot fully explain. Your soulmate began feeling peace whenever thoughts of you appeared, and for the first time in a long while, those thoughts no longer frightened them. They began remembering moments they had forgotten. Tiny details returned with surprising clarity. The way you laughed without trying to impress anyone. The kindness you offered when nobody else noticed. The conversations that once seemed ordinary suddenly felt priceless. They realized that the things they overlooked before had become the very things they missed the most. Every memory carried a lesson. Every lesson carried regret. But hidden beneath that regret was something even more powerful, a growing desire to make things right. Still, fear refused to disappear completely. Fear reminded them of old misunderstandings. Fear whispered that perhaps too much time had passed. Fear insisted you had already moved on. Yet every attempt to walk away only brought them back to the same emotional crossroads. They discovered that running from love requires far more energy than embracing it. Every step away from you somehow felt like a step away from themselves. That realization became impossible to ignore, and destiny quietly prepared its next surprise. Have you noticed how certain numbers seem to appear more often? Maybe certain dreams feel unusually real. Maybe familiar places suddenly call your attention for reasons you can't explain. These moments are easy to dismiss, but your spirit recognizes patterns your logical mind cannot always understand. Sometimes signs arrive gently because truth doesn't need to shout. Sometimes destiny knocks softly before opening the biggest door of your life. And right now, that gentle knocking is becoming louder with every passing day. the person connected to your heart finally stopped asking the wrong question. Instead of wondering whether you still cared, they began asking why they had spent so long hiding what they truly felt. That single shift changed everything. The focus moved away from fear and toward honesty. Away from pride and toward vulnerability. Away from loss and toward possibility. For the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine a future where love was stronger than doubt. The thought overwhelmed them so completely that tears filled their eyes before they even understood why. Those tears were not caused by weakness. They were born from release. Every emotion they buried finally found its way to the surface. Every apology they never spoke echoed through their heart. Every hope they almost abandoned suddenly came alive again. They realized they had been carrying invisible chains made from guilt, uncertainty, and regret. The moment those chains began breaking, happiness rushed into the empty space they left behind. That happiness felt so overwhelming that all they could do was cry, because they believed the impossible might actually become possible. At the same time, your own heart has been preparing for something you cannot yet see. You have learned patience without becoming passive. You have discovered strength without becoming cold. You have embraced faith without demanding immediate answers. These quiet victories matter more than you know. They have been shaping the person you are becoming, and that person is capable of receiving a love far healthier than anything you accepted before. But before that love fully arrives, one final truth still waits in the shadows. The universe rarely reveals its greatest blessings all at once. It unfolds them one layer at a time. If you knew every answer too early, you might never become the version of yourself capable of protecting those answers. So life delayed certain moments. It redirected certain paths. It allowed certain endings because those endings quietly cleared space for something far greater. Looking back, every disappointment begins connecting like stars forming a hidden constellation. And at the center of that constellation stands a promise you have yet to recognize. Your soulmate now understands something they never understood before. They were never searching for perfection. They were searching for peace. They looked in countless places hoping to find it, only to discover that every road eventually led back to the quiet comfort your soul always carried. That realization broke something open inside them. Not their heart, but the walls surrounding it. For the first time, they stopped resisting the connection and started trusting it. In that exact moment, happiness became too powerful to contain, yet there is one detail neither of you knows. While both hearts have been changing in beautiful ways, another force has been quietly arranging a meeting neither of you planned. Conversations are about to happen that seem completely accidental. A familiar name will appear when you least expect it. A simple decision, one that feels almost insignificant, will place you exactly where you are meant to be. It will seem like coincidence at first, until another impossible sign follows immediately after. You may think this story is only about someone crying because you finally changed. But the deeper truth reaches far beyond that. They are crying because you finally chose yourself. You finally stopped abandoning your own worth. You finally became the person your soul was always meant to be. And that inner awakening has awakened something inside them too. Two separate journeys have been quietly moving toward the same destination. Guided by invisible hands neither of you could see, now the distance between what has been and what is about to happen feels thinner than ever before. Every heartbeat carries anticipation. Every sunrise feels like a countdown. Every quiet moment seems filled with invisible possibilities. Something extraordinary is approaching with the gentle certainty of dawn after the longest night. You can almost feel it, even if you cannot explain it. And just as your heart begins to recognize the truth that has been waiting for you all along, someone reaches for something they have hidden for far too long, and the next choice they make will change both of your lives forever.